Thank you, Catherine. Yes, my bio goes on for a bit. I have a couple of jobs, but sadly only one salary. Very good morning. It's an honor indeed to be here today at the 8th International Conference on Cyber Engagement. I'd first like to thank the AtlanticCouncil for inviting me to deliver this keynote address. I know the Council has great hopes because we are starting early in the morning. As for myself, Singapore is 12 hours time difference away, so please forgive me if I nod off halfway. I'm glad to see many familiar faces and this large turnout at today's conference. This reflects the increasing importance that countries are placing on cybersecurity and the related issues, be it cyber norms of behavior, data security, election security, artificial intelligence, or 5G. The list goes on. Many of these issues will be discussed in today's sessions, and I think we'll gain valuable new perspectives from the experts who will be speaking today. My team reminded me that last year, at approximately this time, I was also in Washington, D.C., delivering an address at the National Press Club. At the time of that address, Singapore had just attained the first position in the United Nations ITU Global Cybersecurity Index. Yep, we got first. This year, however, Singapore was ranked 6th globally. The UK is now on top position, with the US a very close second. But as the Singapore example shows, after topping the rankings, the only way next is down. So I understand the mixed feelings of our British colleagues who are here with us today. Just wanted to share with you our own experience. I bring up the ITU rankings to make the point that the Global Cybersecurity Index does not rank countries by the strength of their cyber defenses, or how strong their walls or how impregnable their cyber walls or defenses are. The index is, in fact, a measure of the commitment of ITU member states to cybersecurity. Singapore has consistently fared well globally because we are indeed deeply committed to strengthen the cybersecurity of our systems and networks. In fact, I will go further to say that in some respects, cybersecurity is an existential threat for Singapore. Today, I'd like to share with you some thoughts on why cybersecurity matters to Singapore and how we are tackling the cyber challenge through our multi-pronged national cybersecurity strategy. Singapore sees the world through a lens that is shaped by our geographic, demographic, and economic context. We are a small nation-state in Southeast Asia, a rapidly developing region of over 630 million people. Our population is about 5.9 million. It's similar to that of the Washington metropolitan area. And we're also one of the world's most connected cities. About 93% of Singaporeans use the internet every day, and in fact, there are about 2 cell phones for every Singaporean. In a typical Singaporean audience, they'll be whipping out their cell phones now to confirm that the population of Singapore and Washington metropolitan area is indeed just under 6 million. The pace and scale of Singapore's digitalization push will only become more intense under our Smart Nation initiative, which sets out a vision to harness digital and smart technologies to build a future Singapore. Our National Digital Identity, NDI system, and our push for simplifying and integrating electronic payments are geared towards allowing citizens and businesses to transact in a seamless, convenient, and secure manner. These and other Smart Nation initiatives will enhance the competitiveness and productivity of our economy. But the more digitalized and connected we become, the more important it is to secure our systems, and more work for us, cybersecurity wonks. We see cybersecurity as a key enabler for our Smart Nation drive, not as an impediment. In fact, we should look at cybersecurity like the brakes on a car. We can only drive fast if we have good brakes. Without good brakes, how fast would we dare to go? The parallel would be that without good cybersecurity, how fast would we dare to go towards our Smart Nation and digitalization goals? Ultimately, cybersecurity fosters trust in the technologies that we use today. This trust is the invisible glue that holds our collective digital ambitions together. If we believe that our future prosperity and security will be dependent on the digital world, then we must reach the conclusion that cybersecurity is an existential issue that undergirds and enables our future way of life. Globally, this trust has increasingly become under siege from the many data breaches and cyber incidents reported in the past year. Singapore has not been spared. In the middle of last year, Singapore suffered from the most serious data breach in our history. The personal particulars of about 1.5 million patients, but thankfully not their medical records, was illegally accessed and copied. This was the work of a sophisticated, advanced persistent threat actor. While the financial costs of cyber attacks are already high, indirect costs, such as the loss of trust from the public, are likely to be even higher. We cannot be a successful, smart nation that is trusted and resilient if our systems are open and vulnerable. So why does Singapore's cybersecurity matter to you? I offer you two reasons. First, Singapore is a gateway to Southeast Asia and the larger Asia-Pacific region. We are a major banking, aviation, and maritime hub, and a significant proportion of the world's capital, air traffic, and freight flows through our borders. Cyber attacks impacting such supranational information infrastructure will spill over to systems well beyond our shores. The tremors of a cyber attack, for example, on Singapore's financial sector will be immediately felt in New York and London. Second, as a small but highly connected nation-state, we offer a testbed for innovative solutions. We do not claim to have the model answer to navigating the wild west of cyberspace, but the solutions that we have adopted are what we have deemed to suit our priorities, capabilities, and operating contexts. Sharing our experience can be a basis for further discussions with all of you on how we, as an international community, can combat cyber threats together. This sets the context of the formation of my organization, the Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore, CSA. CSA was formed on the 1st of April 2015 under the Prime Minister's office. The government recognized the pressing need for dedicated and centralized oversight of Singapore's cybersecurity functions. These are encapsulated in the 4 mutually reinforcing pillars of our cybersecurity strategy. It was launched in 2016 by our Prime Minister. Let me briefly take you through some of the key initiatives. First, building a resilient infrastructure and securing our critical information infrastructure, CIIs. CSA plays the role of regulator and partner to ensure that our CII sectors have the capabilities and measures in place to protect against, detect, and respond, as well as recover from cyber threats in a prompt and expedient manner. We have developed a multi-tier national cybersecurity response plan, and we conduct regular cross-sector exercises. For instance, we conduct what we call Exercise Cyberstar, a whole-of-government, or indeed a whole-of-nation cyber exercise that puts Singapore's collective cyber incident management and emergency response plans to the test. We'll be running the 3rd iteration of the exercise later this year. Last year, we also passed and implemented the Cybersecurity Act. The Act provides a legal framework for the oversight and maintenance of national cybersecurity in Singapore, with an emphasis on proactive protection of CIIs against cyber attacks. The Act places legal obligations on the owners of CIIs to put in place mandatory cybersecurity measures in their systems, conduct regular risk assessments and audits on their CIIs, and participate in cybersecurity exercises conducted by CSA, just to name a few. The Act also mandates the reporting of all cyber incidents to CSA and authorizes CSA to respond to and investigate cybersecurity incidents. Secondly, we go beyond our CII sectors to engage businesses and individuals to develop a safe and secure cyberspace. In cyber, we are only as strong as the weakest link. It is important for the public and businesses to be more diligent about protecting their digital lives, their assets, and their data, and to improve our collective security in cyberspace. As seen from the spate of large-scale global data breaches over the past year, including things like Marriott, Facebook, and British Airways, businesses and individuals are often the victims of such indiscriminate attacks. To improve everyday cyber hygiene and savviness, we have undertaken outreach and awareness campaigns to target different segments of the population. For example, we have worked with the schools and trade associations to incorporate elements of cybersecurity and cyber wellness into accessible resources for students and small businesses. Ultimately, while governments will do what we can to provide the public goods and infrastructure towards the creation of a safe and secure cyberspace, we also want to inculcate a sense of collective responsibility in cybersecurity, where everyone, businesses as well as individuals, has an important role to play. Third, building a vibrant cybersecurity ecosystem. Cybersecurity is not just doom and gloom. We have identified cybersecurity as a growth sector for Singapore and a pillar of our digital economy. It opens up jobs and opportunities for our people. To this end, we've attracted a critical mass of the world's top cybersecurity companies to establish a presence in Singapore and also actively help to grow local companies and expertise in the field. Last year, we set up Singapore's first cybersecurity startup hub to help promising startups develop their business ideas, scale, and grow international. We also recognize that manpower is our best resource, but it's also a potential bottleneck in this industry. We have launched several initiatives to deepen our cybersecurity capabilities and to promote growth and career development of professionals. As many of you know, Singapore has a conscript army. The Defence Ministry recently implemented a dedicated vocation for cyber defence, where selected conscripts are trained in cybersecurity to secure and protect military systems and networks. This will give them a head start in cyber skills and experience, which they may tap on in the future and hopefully become professionals in the cybersecurity careers. Our fourth and last pillar emphasizes strengthening our international partnerships. Cybersecurity is a team sport, but one in which we face borderless and asymmetric threats. Combating these threats requires international collaboration to achieve collective action and mutual cooperation. As a small, connected city-state, Singapore is committed to the rules-based international order, all the more so for cyberspace. I'd like to spend some time talking about Singapore's view of a rules-based cyberspace based on applicable international law and the adoption of voluntary operational norms, and why this is critical for us and how we, all of us, can hopefully get there. Singapore is firmly committed to the establishment of a rules-based international order in cyberspace. Cyberspace should not be any different from the physical domains. For example, in the maritime domain, there are rules that govern how states should behave, such as through the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. And similarly, in the aviation domain, we abide by the rules set by the International Civil Aviation Organization. These rules underpin our modern economies and our security. Rules should therefore also apply to the cyber domain. A rules-based order is particularly critical for a small state like Singapore. Why? Because the alternative is a world order where might makes right, where rules and norms are routinely flouted, and where there is considerable uncertainty about the sanctity of international agreements and laws. We are sharply cognizant that a world where might makes right spells disaster for us and other small nations, and perhaps even middle powers. We have a saying in Asia, when the elephants fight, the ants get trampled. A small state like Singapore is like an ant in a jungle full of elephants, and we must do what we can to better secure ourselves, especially when the elephants fight. A rules-based international order is necessary for small states to control our own destiny, free from external interference, to safeguard our national security and indeed the collective security of all states, and to prosper economically and deliver a high quality of life for our citizens. Therefore, the necessity and logic of developing rules or norms of behavior in cyberspace is irrefutable. We need to develop such rules or norms expeditiously, reach an agreement for all states to abide by them, and fully adopt and implement them. The question is how? How we can get there. Since 2004, the United Nations has convened 6 working groups, the United Nations Group of Governmental Experts, to move this discussion forward and to propose norms of behavior that states are encouraged to adopt. Some of these circles have said that it is challenging for states to agree on consensual positions at the UN, and perhaps the UN is not working the way it should be. But Singapore's view is that the United Nations remains the best place to broker an agreement where all states on the rules of the game in cyberspace. It is the only universal, inclusive, and multilateral forum, and states have always turned to the UN to develop the rules governing the global commons, of which cyberspace is part of. Only at the UN can all states, big or small, have an equal voice in creating the outcomes we want through a deliberate and consultative process. Later this year, the UN will be convening the 2019 UNGGE and the first ever open-ended working group. Singapore looks forward to participating actively in both and working with many of you in the coming months and years to make progress in the UN deliberations. But that said, developing practical and implementable rules is and of itself not enough. Efforts to drive international trust and cooperation in cyber should take place across multiple complementary fronts. To this end, Singapore leans forward through a regional and international platforms to advance the important conversation on cyber norms. And we do this in three ways. First, we promote dialogue to focus the attention of the international community on key cyber issues. Since 2016, we organize annually the Singapore International Cyber Week that brings together stakeholders, including policymakers and industry experts, to forge partnerships and engage in dialogue on salient cybersecurity issues. Last year, more than 8,000 people from more than 50 countries attended our Cyber Week. One anchor event is the International Cyber Leaders Symposium, which holds robust panel discussions among cyber thought leaders on the challenges of forging a trusted and resilient cyberspace. Second, we work closely with our neighbors in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, to develop and implement regional cyber norms that are congruent with the 2015 UNGGE norms. For example, we host the ASEAN Ministerial Conference on Cybersecurity in conjunction with our Cyber Week, and our last meeting in September 2018, the ASEAN ministers and senior officials responsible for ICT and cybersecurity agreed to subscribe in principle to all 11 voluntary non-binding norms recommended in the 2015 GGE. This is a huge step forward for the region. Singapore will continue to work with ASEAN towards the adoption of cyber norms. Lastly, we catalyze practical cooperation by facilitating regional cyber capacity building efforts and confidence building measures. Singapore's efforts on this front include cert-to-cert information sharing, memoranda of understanding with international partners, and various initiatives sponsored through our ASEAN Cyber Capacity Program. This seeks to build technical, policy, and strategy building capabilities within our ASEAN member states. We are also committed to launch the ASEAN-Singapore Cybersecurity Centre of Excellence this October. The Centre of Excellence will provide cybersecurity capacity building in three broad areas: strengthening the state's research capabilities and cyber strategy development and legislation and norms, building up incident response capabilities and information sharing among CERTs, and lastly, to provide practical experience through virtual cyber range exercises. So in conclusion, from Singapore's perspective, a resilient and secure cyberspace depends on the successful execution of a holistic cybersecurity strategy. Singapore is deeply committed to cybersecurity, but we are not resting on our laurels. Cyber threats are becoming more sophisticated by the day, and we cannot afford to let down our guard, given the existential nature of cybersecurity to Singapore. We are competing at the global level in cybersecurity. This is not a race that we can win alone. The threats are coming from all over the world. It compels us to work closely with our regional and international partners. Moving forward, it is important not just to build defenses for the cyber threats of today, but also to build the infrastructure, capabilities, and friendships that will enable us to, as an international community, to tackle the cyber threats of tomorrow. To paraphrase my good friend, General Keith Alexander, we should build a network defense where we can use a network, our network of partners, to defend our cyber network. I hope that my sharing on Singapore's approach to cybersecurity has provided some food for thought, and I look forward to exchanging views with you and other distinguished participants throughout the day. Thank you. The organizers have asked me if I'm prepared to take a couple of questions. I think we have time for one or two questions. Please. Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Koch. Patrick Pawlak from the EU Institute for Security Studies in Paris. I would like to seek your clarification on the point you made about the need for rule-based international order on the basis of the existing international law, but then you mentioned as an example the UNCLOS Convention. This is one of the main arguments that China would use when justifying the need for the new international treaty. So would you mind clarifying how you see the two combined? Thank you.
Right. I think that the current challenge that we face is that cyber is not well understood by, there are two groups of people. One are a set of policymakers who operate without full understanding of the technical challenges. And the second are a group of technical experts who don't fully appreciate the policy challenges. I think one of the first challenges is for us to try to bridge this gap between the technical experts and the policymakers. So one of the challenges really are the norms of responsible state behavior. The United Nations group of governmental experts in 2015 agreed on a set of 11 norms of responsible state behavior. These were then subsequently sent to the General Assembly, where they were agreed upon by the General Assembly. So all states have actually voted on this. In my sense, this represents a basic set of behavior. They're not a high bar behavior where states can begin to operate, work towards building the capacity, building the capability, and the technical ability to adhere to these rules. I think if we can do this, then we will begin to agree that we can build a momentum where states can begin to build a momentum of a common understanding of responsible state behavior in cyberspace. The issue of international law is a fraught one. I think there are different interpretations on this. I think in the interest of time, I won't go into them, but I would say that the norms of responsible state behavior in 2015 GGE represent a basic set which states can begin to firstly understand them, build the capability and understanding and the technical ability to do. We have started to do this in ASEAN. As I said, the 10 nations that make up the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, a wide disparity of technical, economic development across ASEAN, have agreed in principle that we would adopt these norms of responsible state behavior. So now what we are doing is building on the issues of building the technical capability, operational understanding to implement this. My own sense is that there's a lot of basic work which can be done to build this up before we go into the issues that states disagree on. I think that if we focus on what can be done, build on this, there will be progress, which will be useful and build momentum. Anything else?
Yes, hi. I have a question. So I'm a proud Singaporean as well, and I'm very curious about what you think Singapore's role can be in terms of shaping international agreements on cybersecurity cooperation. So for example, here in the US has collaborated with the EU on the Privacy Shield. The EU has also worked on the e-evidence proposal. I was curious if Singapore is working on anything similar.
Okay. I think we are mindful that firstly, we are a tiny country, a small ant in a world full of elephants or even large mammals who may feel threatened by other elephants. Far be it from us to believe that we can help shape the international rules-based order, but we do see it is an essential part of our the national survival that there is international rules-based order. So we are actively participating in this. We think that we bring several things to the table, which may or may not be applicable. Firstly is that we're a small country, so we bring a perspective of a small state. A lot of the players in these discussions tend to be large industrialized countries. Singapore is a small state. I think we still remember, we've only lately become more developed. We still are a member of the non-aligned movement and the group of 77. So we have a perspective of our region, of the developing states. We only just, we don't forget where we've come from, and we recognize the challenges that developing states face in terms of their technical and operational capability. So we bring that perspective. Secondly, I think we come from Asia. I think coming from Asia, we also perhaps have a different perspective from Western-dominated discussions, which we sometimes participate in. We speak English, but I think culturally, we are from Asia, and we still have that perspective. So some of these perspectives, I think, might be useful to illuminate a broader swath of opinion, which I think is necessary as we move towards trying to come, reach a broader agreement on issues that affect the whole world. Thank you. I think that's all I have time for. Thank you very much.